And joining me live to speak more about the arrival of INS Arighat, the significance and the effort it has taken to reach this momentous day when India now operates two made in India, designed in India, ballistic missile submarines, nuclear-propelled ballistic missile submarines, is Commodore Anil Jaisingh. He's a veteran submariner, Vice President of the Indian Maritime Foundation as well. Commodore Jaisingh, welcome. Thanks as always for your time on an important, sensitive and little understood topic. Nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine, many say, is even more complicated, than a spacecraft. I don't know how far that is true, but what is clear is that it has taken a gargantuan effort, most of it completely behind closed doors, away from the public eye, for India to be able to induct not one 8 years ago, but two today. The second such submarine of enormous complexity has joined service. How big a day, in your view, is this, coming from a veteran submariner, sir?
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be on your program. As far as the induction of Arighat goes, I think it's a very significant day in the annals of Indian history and for India's maritime security capability, or not maritime security, national security capability. It lends a lot of teeth to our strategic posture. We had one SSBN since 2016-17, that was INS Arihant. And yes. INS Arighat joining the naval fold has certainly greatly enhanced our strategic deterrence capability, because two is always better than one, particularly when it's in cases of SSBNs, it's a tremendous exponential leap actually in capability. But I think what is very significant about Arighat's commissioning is that SSBN technology is something that nobody shares with anybody else. And so we've had to go about it on our own. So right from design to commissioning, this is an indigenous effort. And I think that speaks volumes for not only the capability of our industry, our Atomic Energy Commission, the Navy, and all the other agencies that have been involved with it, the Research and Development Organization, etc., private industry, which has contributed significantly to this program. All of them have been able to put their heads together and really deliver on a promise that that was long overdue. If India has to play in the big league, if India has to be a member of the global top table, it has to have these capabilities. Now, there is often said that, it's taken very long for this program to mature and fructify. But as I said, there are two factors. One, we had to go about it all on our own. So we had to develop the technological capability, the industrial infrastructure, the industrial expertise, and the operational and maintenance capability by the Navy to be able to operate and maintain this very, very complex and sophisticated platform. You're right. It's always SSBN is likened to a spaceship in complexity, and I don't think that's very inaccurate or off the mark, because the kind of environment an SSBN is to operate in, it has to have a miniaturized reactor. Reactors on land are hazardous enough and complicated enough. Here you're trying to miniaturize a reactor, put it inside a steel cylinder which has 60 or 70 men inside it. You cannot afford to go wrong. Yes, and that is why it becomes very critical that even when a SSBN goes for a first trial to sea, there has to be the confidence that every system will work the way it is meant to work. There's no hit and trial in a submarine that, okay, we'll go to sea and, if something doesn't work, doesn't matter, we'll come back and sort it out. Because there may be certain things that may happen which may prevent the submarine from coming back at all. So I think from that perspective, we must have learned a lot of lessons from Arihant. Arihant was our first ever attempt.
Absolutely.
And this sort of gap between Arihant and Arighat of almost 7 to 8 years must have been spent in trying to iron out and learn the right lessons and ensure that whatever challenges were faced with Arihant have now been addressed. The whole construction progress will be more streamlined, because please do not forget, we are going in for larger and bigger SSBNs in the future. So we've got to be very sure of our capability.
The question I want to ask Commodore Jaisingh is, in this 8-year gap between the earlier submarine we commissioned in 2016, the INS Arihant, and the Arighat, there are reported to have been many improvements, which there must have been. Like you said, many things would have been ironed out, capabilities would have gotten a boost. There are some reports that suggest a larger weapon carrying capacity, etc. Obviously, necessarily, all of these things will remain, under a shroud of secrecy. Nobody will know for sure what these capabilities are. But broadly speaking, what would the major improvements be from the first submarine to the Arighat now, sir?
Well, I think 2 or 3 things stand out right in the beginning. One is, of course, probably the weapon payload. I know that this submarine is also designed to carry the K-15, which is on the Arihant, which has a limited range of 750 kilometers. But we've also been hearing about the success with the underwater testing of the 3,500 kilometer K-4 missile.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Arighat will have a larger capability of being able to carry a more potent missile on board. So systems would have had to be adapted to that. The fire control system, interfacing with various other systems on board. The missile launch system by itself, that is one part of it. Secondly, I'm sure lessons learned from Arihant would have made this submarine quieter, more stealthy. Perhaps, certain areas where there were concerns with the equipment would have been ironed out. The complexity of the reactor is now better understood. We would have been able to refine that, perhaps better damping, more stealth, less vibration, better acoustics. There are many things that happen. Better sensors, perhaps, a more advanced version of the sensors that are on the Arihant. There are many things that can be improved on the submarine, in a sequential manner. And I'm sure many of these would have been done. Many new technologies would have been adapted. Better command and control platform, perhaps. Better communication suite. Because in an SSBN, I think the most important element is the ability to communicate with the shore.
Yeah.
Imagine an SSBN out somewhere hundreds of miles out at sea, hundreds of meters below the water, having to deliver a ballistic nuclear weapon on fixed coordinates at a particular time, ordered by a command authority sitting ashore, perhaps in New Delhi. Now, that sort of robust ecosystem of communication and command and control needs a major sort of workup. It's not something that's going to happen naturally. There must have been issues with that. So all these things would have been ironed out. If you remember, in 2018, Arihant went for a first deterrent patrol. Yeah. That must have been first time the submarine was sent out to test its complete command and control ecosystem of the country, not so much of the submarine. Because delivering a weapon is one thing. Submarines are designed to fire weapons. The missile can be fired. But a ballistic nuclear missile is a whole different ballgame.
Correct.
And also, beyond a point, if the commanding officer has been ordered to launch a weapon, it's not something that can be stopped last minute and said, oh, don't launch, sorry, we're making a mistake, or sorry, we gave you the wrong coordinates. So it's a very complex structure that has to be put in place, a very complex architecture that has to be put in place to ensure that the submarine, for the purpose for which that SSBN is deployed, it is able to fulfill that objective successfully. Otherwise, the credibility of your entire nuclear weapon capability comes into question. So I think these are the things that they must have worked on a lot, addressed many of the issues that must have come up, and done extensive sea trials to ensure that once she's commissioned, she is fully combat capable and fully capable of going on a full-fledged deterrent patrol, armed and with all the command and control ecosystem in place.
Is there, the differences between a conventional submarine and a nuclear submarine, we've explained that to our viewers, Commodore Jai Singh, but, India and Indian sailors, Indian crews have had a few years, getting used to the very, very real differences in deployment in a nuclear submarine where you stay submerged, for much longer periods because that's what nuclear propulsion allows. How different is it? Is India now a true blue nuclear submarine wielding force?
Yes, I'm sure it is, because, 2 SSBNs is quite an achievement. I mean, don't forget, we are now the 6th nation in the world capable of building and operating our own SSBNs. So, and we've also proved that Arihant was no flash in the pan. It was a well thought out program which took its time to mature, obviously, because, India is not a rich country. We would have had financial constraints, we would have had resource constraints, we would have had technology constraints. Despite all that, we were able to put Arihant to sea, which was also, besides being an SSBN, a technology demonstrator of India's technological skills. But putting Arighat to sea means that we have consolidated that capability. We are now very sure of what we can do. And this augurs very well for the future SSBNs that we are planning to build, the bigger ones with more capability. So I think from that perspective, it's very important. As far as the habitability and the crew the cruise sort of approach to nuclear submarine goes, we've trained our nuclear submarine crews considerably. We
Yes.
got the Chakra from Russia on lease for many years. We sailed that, so people learned the complexity of operating a platform like this at sea, the challenge of staying at sea for long duration, much longer than we
Yes.
do in SSKs. Of course, SSKs being much smaller, the conventional diesel electric boats have their own challenges of
Correct.
space. The spaces are very confined. The SSBNs definitely have more space. The habitability is better. So all that is there, but nonetheless, spending 3 months underwater or 4 months underwater is a lot more than spending 30 to 40 days underwater. So I think the crews
Absolutely.
are well trained. The crews already were trained submariners, so it's not that they had to learn the ropes of submarining. They've just had to adapt their sort of submarining habits to now operating on a nuclear submarine. So I think from that point of view, we wouldn't have faced much of a challenge. We've spent a lot of time training our crews, training our commanding
Absolutely.
officers, executive officers, other officers, and the men. So,
Well,
as far as manning goes, I don't think it's operating SSBN is going to be a challenge for us. Now,
I
from
think
a
it's
perspective of our capability,
Yes.
you said, are we truly a blue water submarine navy? Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that, because we still do not have an SSN capability. Now, an
Correct.
SSN
Yeah.
capability is an integral part of any blue water navy, because the SSN becomes your cutting edge frontline offensive weapon at
Absolutely.
sea, which is capable of being deployed anywhere at any time. It can do high speeds for any duration of time. It is very stealthy, and it packs a major punch, even though it carries only conventional weapons. So I think till
And
we
the
don't get our SSNs, which is also a program that I understand is on the anvil, I think only
Correct.
once we have a
Correct.
complete SSN, SSBN, and SSK capability would we really say that
Okay.
we are a true blue submarine operating navy.
Commodore Jai Singh, always a pleasure. Thank you for your inputs and your wisdom on this complicated story, helping us and our viewers understand what INS Arighat means, but also asking those important questions about what it's going to take to move to that next level. Thank you very much, Commodore Anil Jai Singh, for being here with us on Battle
Thank
Cry.
you.
Now,
It's a
remember,
pleasure. Thank you very much.
thank you very much, sir.